Hi everyone, welcome back to Past Middle School ELA. Today's topic is an extension of yesterday's video about state test multiple choice questions. Today we'll be covering everything or the most common questions on 6.3, which is key events, key ideas, and individuals. Believe it or not, 60% of the test cover this standard and one or two others. So this is a really important video for you guys to watch and become comfortable with these questions. Of course, the questions will be different depending on the passage, but if you are comfortable with how they look and what you need to be looking for in the passage, it is sure to help you out. So let's get started. The first common question is right here on the screen. The author demonstrates that blank is blank by. So let me just give a little bit of a sample of what you might see. Of course, you might see something different. The author demonstrates that the main character is thoughtful by. So if you were annotating your test, you would box out the main character because you're looking for details about that main character. And then you are looking for details that prove the main character is thoughtful. So whatever this question has, those two blanks, that's what you're looking for. Whenever you have the author demonstrates, that's asking for proof. How did the author show this? How did the author do this? So those would be the things that you're looking for. Next up, how does blank propel the main events of the plot? So again, I have another little sample here from a made-up story. How does finding the ring propel the main events of the plot? Well, I would focus on what event is mentioned in that question, and then I would think about what occurs afterwards. If you think about it, your second thing you would want to box in is propel, and propel means to move forward. So how does this event move things forward? How does this event continue the story? In other words, what happened afterwards? What happened as a result of that event that's been mentioned? Next common question. The author most likely includes the event described in lines blank through blank to show that. So essentially, why did the author include those events and what does it show? So I would box out the lines. I would box out show just to remind me I'm trying to find out what the author wanted to show for this. So I would go back to those lines, think about what did I, the reader, learn when I read those lines. Next, what do line blank through blank mostly reveal or show about blank? So to help us understand this one, because there's a lot of blanks in that one, I just did a sample one, filled it in. What do lines 7 through 10 mostly show about the narrator? Makes sense, right? Of course, you would want to go back through lines 7 through 10, annotate it. What did you as the reader really learn there? And depending on the question, what did you learn about something? What did you learn about the narrator? Maybe there were some thoughts included in those lines, maybe an event or an action. So you really got to mark up these questions and figure out what exactly are you looking for. More often than not, you got to box out those lines to help you remember to only look at those lines. Next, which detail signals a change in the direction of the story? Essentially, signals means shows as well. So you have to think about what events are happening throughout the story. Think about a summary, what happened first, then, later, etc. Where was a major change in the story? Maybe everything was calm and suddenly a problem arrived. That would be a change in the story. Maybe there was a lot of problems and then suddenly there was a solution in sight. That would also be a change in the story. So when you think about this, you have to think about what events are happening, what direction are the characters going in, what's everyone planning on, and then anytime a change occurs, that would be an answer for this question. How does the author first introduce the idea of blank? This is more often a nonfiction question. So I put in a sample question just to help us out. How does the author first introduce the idea that chocolate is a scientific process, or excuse me, that making chocolate is a scientific process? I would look at first, and then I would box out the idea. And the reason I want to box out first is because you have to think about, well, let me start from the beginning of the passage and find out the very first detail that shows me this. That will tell you how the author first introduced it. So again, for this question, I highly recommend going way back to the beginning of the passage That way you do not miss the very first time that it is mentioned. Next, which statement best describes how the narrator reacts to events in paragraphs blank through blank? Oops. So again, you want to look at how the narrator reacts, meaning how do they feel, what do they do, what do they say. You could look for details that the narrator does through actions, thoughts, or words, dialogue. And then, of course, it needs to occur after the details that are mentioned in the question. So first things first, you should be boxing out what is their reaction, and you should be looking back in the passage at whatever paragraphs are mentioned. Otherwise, you're going to be looking in the wrong place. And lastly, how does blank change while? So I filled this in just to help us out a little bit. Sorry, I'm trying to make myself out of the way. How does the narrator change while listening to her grandfather's stories? That's just a sample. So you would look for the event in question. You would look at the grandfather's stories, and you would look at how the narrator changes afterwards. So of course, as I just mentioned, you can figure out how the narrator changes or how a character changes depending on their dialogue, their thoughts, or their actions. So, of course, this is not everything on the test, but those are the most common questions, and hopefully seeing them, being exposed to them, and seeing how you might tackle them will help you feel more comfortable with them on the test. Of course, the questions will be different depending on the passage, but the way the questions are worded are going to be very similar. So hopefully this helped you have a plan of attack. Thank you for watching Pass Middle School ELA, and happy studying.